quite small, so I can't see every single face. So I just wanted to make sure. So there's 3 of you that have joined. Let's see if anyone else is planning to join. But what I'm going to do is, because this was quite a relatively small group to begin with anyway, I think I will slowly start the meeting, and if anybody does join us, then we can just catch them up as we go. Because it is relatively small, I think I'd like to start with the introductions. I'll do mine first, and then I'm going to go to our experts in the room. They'll come on camera and give an intro, and then if our 3 councillors can do the same, that'd be fantastic. So I'm Sarah Jacobs. I'm the Senior Engagement Manager for the local representative groups for East West Rail. Most likely you've seen me at the LRG sessions we used to run online, or even perhaps in person at some of the consultation events. So thank you very much for joining. We're going to hand over to Katie Sutton, please.
Hello, everybody. Katie Sutton. So I'm the head of DCO engagement and consultation for East West Rail.
Thanks, Katie. And Jonathan Cornwell.
Good evening. My name is John Cornwell. I'm the development program manager for the Cambridge section of East West Rail. So the project program management of the railway has been split into 5 parts, and the Cambridge section starts just to the west of Harston and continues all the way into Cambridge. So that's the area I cover.
Thanks, John. Katie?
Hi, I'm Katie. I'm the environment area manager for the Cambridge section.
Ben?
Ben Nicholas, East West Rail, leading on traffic and transport.
Do we have Adam tonight? Yeah.
Good evening, Adam Koteletsky. I'm East West Rail's engineering manager for this same area that Jonathan covers. So Cambridge, from Harston through Cambridge Station and beyond.
Thanks, Adam. And I think Jack's just joined.
I have. Apologies, I'm running slightly late. Jack Gout. I am the Cambridge Area Assistant Engineer Manager for the technical partner.
Fabulous, thank you. I think that's most of our SME sort of experts in the room. We do have some people joining us tonight that are sort of supporting with the production of the sort of minutes, if you like, in the background here. But if I can ask one of the councillors to come on camera and just introduce yourself and where you represent, that'd be great.
I'm Claire Daunton. I'm a parish councillor in Little Wilbraham, which is to the east of Fulbourn, but I'm also the county councillor for the Fulbourn division, which includes 5 or 6 different communities in and around Fulbourn.
Lovely, thank you so much.
Hi, and I'm Christine Shaw. I'm a parish councillor here in Teversham, just on the edge of Cambridge.
Lovely, thank you. I think we have one other on the call. Anyone else? There's 3 councillors on that list.
Ian?
No. Ian? Right, okay, maybe Ian's off at the moment. Thank you for introducing yourself. I realise it's quite a small number tonight. Just if we can, oh, you can't use your mic. Okay, no problem, Ian. That's going to be difficult for you when you're trying to talk to us later, but perhaps put your comments in the chat box. I'll come back to how we'll kind of manage the session. If we can go back to that next slide.
Ian, sorry, Sarah. Ian, could you just write in the chat what parish you represent, please? Thank you. Sorry, Sarah.
No problem. So just a bit of background for this session tonight. As you know, we're currently sort of 3/4 of the way through our non-stat consultation. We thought it was sort of relevant and very important that we come out and talk to those parishes, wards that are on the red line boundary, so that we can actually talk to you and sort of get some of your feedback on what we've proposed and what's out there in the consultation material, so that you can sort of go away, if you like, and then, you know, collate and talk to your local villagers and parishioners and feel confident that you can provide some feedback through the appropriate channels, through the online forms or the paper forms. So tonight is really an opportunity to kind of do a bit of a walk through your impacted areas, where the route is coming through. The reason that we have all of our experts in the room is for that purpose, so that they can answer those questions. So essentially, this is a bit of a mini sort of consultation event for you, but we felt it would be really good to sort of have that open conversation with you, to give you that opportunity to really understand what we're proposing, so that we can have that time to get that fed back. As I said earlier, this is being recorded purely so that we can make sure that we don't miss any of the feedback or any of the comments, so that we can write up a comprehensive sort of note after, which we will share with you, that you can review. And once you're happy with that, we will sort of file that and publish that. There's 3 of us tonight, so obviously Ian, you can't use your mic, so please put your comments or questions in the chat, and we'll keep an eye on that, and we'll read them out so that they can be addressed. And anybody else, just feel free to put your hand up, or just chat. There's a small enough number of us tonight that we should be able to do that quite comfortably, so that should work quite well tonight. And feel free to put your cameras on if and when you are asking questions, because it always makes a sort of nicer environment for conversation. Thank you. Should we look at the agenda quickly? Have we gone past that one? Thanks. So I've done the introductions, done the bit of housekeeping. We're going to give you a very quick sort of update on the project, and where we are in the process. I'll hand over to Katie shortly. There'll be a bit of an introduction to the workshops and, well, the workshop, what we're trying to do today, but it is very informal, so it should be relatively easy to follow, and it is, as I say, quite informal, so we just want a conversation here. John will provide an update on the proposals and what we are discussing with you, and then if there's time at the end or time throughout, we can just continue to have some conversations around the design and connectivity, which we're looking at today. Brilliant. And then we can go to the terms of reference slide. This is just to kind of set the scene, really. So as you know, in 2023 we did the route update announcement, which we made quite clear about which was our preferred route. So these sessions aren't really to go over the preferred route. It's very much to talk about what we've recently launched in the consultation. We really want to hear your feedback on what's been shared. So it's really just to outline that we'd like to talk to you very much around the benefits of the railway, what your take on the environmental and sustainability is, and if you have any questions around that, we can answer what the construction might look like and logistics, and certainly touch on the connectivity and active travel, but they are very much suggestions. We are sort of here to hear what you would like to talk about as well. And as I mentioned earlier, this is a discussion about feedback, but the appropriate method of collecting feedback is and always will be to complete the feedback forms, either online or the paper ones that we've been giving out. So just to bear that in mind, anything that we take away today will be fed back to our teams to be looked at, but certainly it would need to be captured in the appropriate feedback channels. So are there any questions from our councillors before I move on?
Could I just, it's a question from Claire Daunton here. Could I just be absolutely clear what we're covering tonight in terms of area? You said the Cambridge section. Could you just repeat what that means? I think it was explained earlier, but I couldn't quite hear. I think maybe it was Jonathan Cornwell who was speaking. What do you mean by the Cambridge section?
John?
Yeah, I mean, the people, the specialists on the call tonight are predominantly those who work on the Cambridge section, which is the area just to the west of Harston and all the way into Cambridge. So it's a fairly big area. We can try and take other questions as well, but yeah, the people on this call mostly cover, as I said, the Cambridge area.
Yeah, and it's as far east as Fulbourn. We've got some minor items there, but through Cherry Hinton, up to Cherry Hinton and minor bits through to Fulbourn, and then northwards it's up towards Cambridge North Station and just shy of the A14 by Milton.
Okay, is there a map showing that?
Yes, we've got some.
Okay, thanks. You'll come to the
map.
map then. That will make things clearer. Thank you.
Yeah, but really, Claire, anything you want to ask, we're here to try and enlighten you as much as possible. So please do direct the conversation if it's not going where you want it to.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, no worries, Claire. So, I mean, what we historically have done is we've got the local representative groups, and they're quite broad, and they covered quite a large range of area. Now we have a more defined route, which we've shared in our proposals. These workshops are designed to bring those parishes and villages that are directly impacted to a sort of more contained meeting. So that's why it's a relatively sort of small group tonight, but as John said, it does cover quite a broad area still. But yeah, it's very informal, so please feel free to just ask questions as and when you need to. Thank you, Charlie. I think that is the sort of intro done. So over to Katie. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. Yeah, just to add to what Sarah was saying, these workshops are in addition to the consultation. So, of course, submit your formal feedback, but please do, this is a great way to get feedback immediately, receive that feedback from you and get it fed and considered in the design quicker. So that's why we're running these workshops. Yeah, looking forward to hearing from you all tonight. So where we are in the process. So as you all know, this is a major infrastructure project. There's a lot that goes on in the development of this type of project, a lot of assessment work that happens. So starting over on the left-hand side, you'll see, things that you're already well aware of. We've had 2 non-stat consultations. We've had a route update announcement and lots of engagement with yourselves through the LRGs throughout that period. So that's all kind of what I would say is in the past. And in that time, we started with a route corridor is what we call it, or what the engineers call it. And it's quite a wide route on a map with lots of options within that area. And as we progress the design, this gets more and more refined, and preferences for the route gets confirmed. So that's what we've been doing kind of in the past. And we're now at this stage in the consultation where we're consulting on the current proposals. Yes, there's some optionality within those proposals, but we have confirmed preferences within that. We will use all the feedback that we get from this non-stat consultation and from engagement that we have with stakeholders, so statutory stakeholders and wider stakeholders as well, and we'll consider that as part of the design development process. And then what happens after that period, we then move into a period of more refinement of the design and design development, and that includes environmental assessment work and mitigation development as well, which all of that information, all that work that's going to happen over the next few months, that then gets presented at statutory consultation. And that's where we'll have more detailed information for you about the potential impacts of the project. So after StatCon, we'll then do the same thing where any feedback we've received from the consultation and ongoing engagement feedback that we receive, we consider that, we address it, consider it in the design where we can, and then we develop the design further so it's ready for a DCO submission. So then over on that far right, you then have that DCO submission, DCO examination. There's a fact sheet on the DCO process. So if you want to know a bit more about that, read through that, but I'm happy to talk through it as well tonight if you want. But essentially, we're in the pre-application stage, ready for trying to get towards a DCO submission. Next slide, please. So just a bit of a summary of the non-stat consultation so far and where we're at with things. There's been 10 in-person events. There's been over 3,000 attendees. Which is a great number. That's really good engagement in the consultation. We've had 2 online events. There's one more this week. We've had around 100 attendees for those, and those are just a good way for people to access the technical experts, the specialists, in a different avenue instead of in person. So we've received over 2,000 responses, feedback received as of the beginning of January. And then, yeah, you've probably seen all the material. We have a lot of material available online and in the virtual consultation room, a lot of different ways to engage in the project and learn about our proposals. So down there on that bottom right, you've got some consultation events that are still remaining. There's one today as well, and then a few more left to run through. Next slide, please. I think, so did you run through the purpose of the workshops already? You've run through the
No,
terms of reference. I'll
just
run
the
through
terms of
purpose.
reference, yeah.
Yeah, so I think, you know, Sarah touched on it, I've touched on it a bit. You know, this is an opportunity for you to feedback to us on what we're consulting on right now. And it's a way to, you know, you have a lot of local knowledge. You live in the area, and that's what we're here to get from you and learn from you and see what we can do to consider that in the design. So these workshops are really here for us to get an opportunity to speak to you and for you to share with us your feedback. So we'll be interactive. We'll run through a few slides and then we'll get through to the plan and profiles and maps so you can start giving us your feedback. And yeah, I think that's probably all that needs to be covered on that slide. Next slide. Consultation with the local authorities. Yeah, so we've had we're running similar workshops with the local authorities. So that's with I'd say the planning officers, the technical officers within the local authorities, where we've held workshops or are holding workshops with them. So we've already held one with the 4 Cambridge local authorities and the Huntingdonshire District Council. So that was in early December. And that's some of the feedback, key topics as well that were raised at that workshop. And as I said before, you know, that feedback that we've received has gone in and it's being taken through our design change process to be considered as part of the design. So you can see there's some comments around active travel, legacy, and then some opportunities about the eastern entrance and then a station at Cambridge East. Any questions so far on what I've talked through? Nope, let's crack on. Next slide then, please. Cool, I think it's over to you, John, isn't it?
Thanks, Katie. Okay, so this slide is basically just a high-level overview of the area we thought was probably most pertinent to you. Like I said earlier, we can zoom out to wider discussions if you like, but I know it's small on this screen. I don't know if you can zoom in. Whoever's controlling it, could we zoom in on the map? Ah, perfect, thank you. So just a very brief overview of what we're proposing from the bottom of the screen here, just to the south of Cambridge South. We are putting 2 new tracks on the West Anglia Main Line all the way up to Cambridge Station. Passenger services would call at Cambridge South Station. And then the major change since the last consultation is this concept of turnbacks out to the east of Cambridge. We started the design study back in the middle part of last year to look at whether we could take the impact out of the very constrained, busy area of Cambridge Station. So all 4 trains per hour that we're forecasting come into Cambridge Station. Under the previous proposals, the trains would terminate and turn back at Cambridge Station, increasing the amount of time they required at the station and therefore the amount of platform space we needed. Outside the station, there's very little available space without purchasing land, for example, the Royal Mail. So the study we set out on was to explore whether we could still bring the 4 trains per hour into Cambridge Station, but whether they could trundle on empty rather than turning back at Cambridge Station, thus reducing the platform space. And that's what we're presenting in this consultation. So the process we've been through, assessing a long list of options through to a short list of options, has arrived at our preferred option, which is the turnback location just to the west of Cherry Hinton. That's labelled on this map just to the just to the north side of the lakes. So it's a fairly unremarkable piece of infrastructure, just a piece of tarmac where the train arrives at, the driver gets out, walks to the other end and turns and turns the train back to Cambridge Station to pick up passengers, but does afford us a huge amount of savings in terms of cost and time. So that's a very high level overview of the east part. We are proposing to make some updates, upgrades to Cambridge North Station, although not proposing trains to call there. Next slide, please. So this is just a bit more of a summary of the works that are required. And I suppose in the Teversham-Fulbourn area, it's the works to the Newmarket line. Most significantly at the moment, it's single tracked, and we propose to double track the route all the way from Coldham's Lane out to the turnback location. That requires some upgrades to two footbridges, the one on Coldham's Common and the Tins footbridge. And upgrades to Laundry Lane level crossing. Next slide, please. This is our approach to the environment. Katie, are you doing this slide?
Yep. So as it says here, the protecting the environment is a fundamental part of our decision making. And is a key consideration in the development of East West Rail proposals. So we are taking a proactive approach to use environmental data as a fundamental part of developing designs to avoid, reduce and compensate for potential impacts on the environment. We have actually set several targets for environmental mitigation to balance potential impacts from the construction and operation of the project. Which these include around biodiversity, net zero carbon, operational noise, operating depots and stations that are capable of being net zero, and delivering a railway that reduces whole life carbon emissions. And as we've said on the slide there, we have prepared an environmental sustainability strategy, which actually contains 6 environmental sustainability pillars that covers those bullet points that I just mentioned. So the considerations of these potential likely environmental impacts of the proposals and mitigations are described in the environmental update report, which is available online as part of the consultation material. For statutory consultation, which is at some point in the future, preliminary environmental information report will be shared and an environmental statement will then be submitted as part of the development consent order. Then throughout this process, we use those surveys, etc., to influence design development, and the environmental impact assessment will continue making use of the information to develop mitigation and also to improve the design.
Thanks, Katie. There's just a couple of slides on homes, land and property thought pertinent to you. So there's a couple of key points to bring out here. The backing that the government gave in the autumn to the project gave us a thing called safeguarding direction. This is basically the rule now that new planning applications have to consult with us to basically ensure that we're aligned in terms of the wider development of Cambridge. So that's one significant point to note. And on the next slide, we talk about land interest questionnaires. These are the questionnaires that went out to any resident, property owner, occupier along the route, basically to generate feedback to confirm land holdings, ownership, and those properties were contacted because there will be some impact, not necessarily a requirement to purchase, but maybe impact in terms of noise and vibration, for example. We can come back to this in more detail if you want, but Should we keep moving on, please? Okay, so that was just our presentation, just racing through a few high-level themes. Is there any questions at this stage before we get into the detail of our proposals? Claire?
Yeah, so on the land interest questionnaire, those were sent to people living east of Cherry Hinton on the borders of both Fulbourn and Teversham. But from what you've been saying, the turnback is west of Cherry Hinton. Now, were those questionnaires in relation to land for the dualling of the track between Fulbourn and Newmarket? Why were they sent?
Okay, I might get up, go straight to the plans because that's something useful to talk around. So these I'm showing now are the drawings that are available on the website issued as part of the consultation materials. So this one shows the Colden's curve and the doubling all the way out to zoom back. The turnback location, as you say, Claire, that's right. The turnback locations to the west of Cherry Hinton. And then you referenced some residents who'd received land interest questionnaires to the east of Cherry Hinton.
Yeah, yes, indeed. If you could speak into the microphone, it would help because your voice is rather muffled. But yes, I'm talking about areas to the east of Cherry Hinton, and it wasn't clear to the people who received the land interest questionnaires why they were receiving them. And it's still not clear to me. Is that to do with sidings? Is it to do with turnback? Is it to do with the next stage of development onto Newmarket, or what was the purpose of the questionnaires?
Yeah, okay. I mean, Adam's raring to get in here.
Yeah.
And I've got the map up of the extents of the routes here.
Thanks, John. Claire, I don't think there's any significant impact east of Cherry Hinton level crossing. Now, of course, any infrastructure that we need to propose that supports the operational railway, so up to and including the Cherry Hinton turnback, needs to be included within our draft order boundary limit. So in the Fulbourn area, there is an existing line-side telecoms compound, which you can see there's an arrow pointing just to the extremities of the draft order boundary limit. As part of the work that we need to undertake, we need to upgrade a lot of the telecoms systems, which means we need a new telecom station. It's a sort of relatively small shed-sized building with an antenna on the top, and we need to upgrade them. So we would tend to build something adjacent to it before we then remove the existing building. So where we need to go into areas such as this, there is of course a level of construction, whether that's even just a few vans or a few trucks to deliver materials to get to these particular locations, and then the actual construction activity itself. Quite often that would just automatically trigger a notification that there is some activity going on in the area. And I think the letters don't necessarily contain the detail of what level of construction that is. So whether or not you're living right next door to a bridge that is being rebuilt, or whether you're living alongside an access route that the contractors might need to get to position a small cabinet next to the railway, the letters don't necessarily distinguish between the two. So I guess that's where the engagement that we're undertaking hopefully can really tell the residents or the business owners precisely what magnitude of work it is that's happening in the areas, and then we can advise and inform accordingly as to the level of potential disruption that we potentially may be putting in. But actually in this area, with the exception of the telecoms compound, everything's being contained within the railway. So there will be some on-railway construction work, but there's no additional doubling of track. It's nothing to do with enabling a future stage to double the track up towards Newmarket, or certainly beyond where we've currently proposed at Cherry Hinton. It is it's contained within the railway, and it's a relatively small scale work, specifically reflective of the scope that we're proposing, which in this case is a telecoms compound in Fulbourn, because that's where the one is, the existing one is at the moment, and then connecting that location all the way back to the turn back west of Cherry Hinton High Street.
I'm sorry, I do want to come back on that. So the issue for residents is that they receive these letters, but they didn't know why they're receiving the letters. And so the people to whom you sent those letters, will you now be telling them why they received the letters, or will you be inviting them to come to St Andrew's Church in Cherry Hinton, or on the 21st, or the Clayton Hotel in the city on the 18th? Will they actually get letters so that they can receive the kind of explanation that you're giving here?
So we're certainly inviting all and sundry in the area. Whether or not there's specific dedicated invitations, I wouldn't know. Possibly, Sarah. Might be something you may be able to advise.
Everyone, sorry, Adam. Everyone within that vicinity received a postcard which detailed the place and event and the St Andrew's Church event. And then on the letter there should have been, there was dedicated helplines, which was another option. So, I mean, hopefully the residents can use one of those means to come and talk to us and get further information.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Sarah.
Yeah, it was just to really back that up. So we have followed up quite a few inquiries from Cherry Hinton residents and met with them as well. And I think we've tied that sort of loop up now. But we do have the Cherry Hinton event coming up. So, you know, again, we expect some of the residents to be there. We'll be able to talk to the land and property teams again. But I think initially when the postcards were received, it created quite a lot of confusion and concern. But that was a few months ago now, and we have had quite a few conversations with them since. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Is there any other questions at the moment, or I might move back onto the plan and profile drawings for a bit more detailed discussion, if that works for everyone? Is it fair to say that the infrastructure from about Coldham's Junction eastward is the stuff you're most interested in? Is that fair, from a Fulbourn Teversham perspective?
Well, there are other people here on the in the meeting from Teversham as well, so I think it would be good to ask Christine and Ian Robinson.
Yeah, sorry, that was an open question to all. I can't hear anyone else speaking. So maybe I'll just go along, and please people chip in if there's anything you want to ask specifically.
John, can you just repeat your question, please?
My question was, are we focusing on the right area of the infrastructure? I'm assuming we are, because it's the area most geographically close to Fulbourn Teversham. And the second question was, if there's any specific questions we can answer, please do speak up.
Thanks, John.
Okay.
And I guess Ian, just I saw your message in the chat. If you do have any specific areas that you want talked through, spoken through, please do drop it in the chat. But yeah, John, it sounds like you said yes.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Okay, if I just keep walking through some more detailed elements of the route, and please stop me as you'd like. So this is the Coldham's Curve, where the West Anglia Main Line continues up north to Cambridge North, and the Newmarket line heads out to the east. As I said earlier, we are adding another line to that railway all the way out to the proposed turnback location. It used to be twin tracked in the past, so predominantly there's enough space to do that without going outside the rail boundary.
Can you blow the map up a little?
Yes.
That's better. Yeah, thanks.
Sorry, it's hard to do this online, and just as an aside, there's an open invite to do these meetings face to face going forward. It might be easier. We can bring printouts. So this is the Golden's Curve. As I mentioned, and might be relevant to you, especially people coming from Fulbourn, Teversham into Cambridge. The footbridge on Coldham's Common requires replacing because the span isn't great enough for the new track to get underneath it. So that's one piece of infrastructure we're looking at replacing. Any particular comments on that? Yeah, not, I'll keep going.
Good, good.
Okay. There's the twin tracking continues all the way along to a point just here, which again I think is significant for potentially Fulbourn Teversham residents. Sorry, the Tins footpath bridge. So again, that would need to be replaced. Probably relevant to this conversation is that the Greater Cambridge Partnership are proposing to replace that anyway, and we're working closely with them to ensure that what they do is appropriate for what we do. They're looking at doing this within the next year or two, and obviously we are some way off construction starting, so we've got good links with them, making sure we're interfaced appropriately.
So this is phase 2 of the Fulbourn Greenway.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Yeah. Can I ask you about if you just go back a bit to the Barnwell Underbridge? What's happening there with the road?
So, the
Barnwell Underbridge, nothing.
Pardon?
You said Barnwell Underbridge, nothing.
Yeah. So the construction that you're doing, what effect is that going to have on the road network?
So during the construction phase, there'll of course be some impact into the road as we get various materials or personnel travelling to site. We are developing our construction programs and methodologies as we speak. The full details of our approach to construction and the mitigation that we have for example, road usage of construction vehicles will be part of the Code of Construction Practice, which is a mandatory document in the statutory consultation, which is approximately 12 months. We're expecting to be about 12 months from now. Now, a lot of this work we're expecting to be actually done on the rail side. So many materials removed from site by rail and delivered to site by rail, so such to minimize any impact into the local road network. The structures themselves, the bridges themselves, it used to be a twin track railway up until the 1970s. Barnwell Underbridge is in a good condition. We don't believe that it requires any work. Codham's Lane Underbridge is in a slightly worse condition. We think we've still got to undertake some detailed surveys. I personally had a look at the structure myself just before Christmas, and it requires some extensive TLC. But from what we're seeing at the moment, it's not an extensive rebuild or replacement. Now, when we undertake those sorts of works, you know, typically Network Rail, who would likely be the ones that commission this sort of work, might have some temporary closures, but they tend to be sensitive to busy times of day. You know, I know that that roundabout gets absolutely choked during the day, so it would quite often be looked to undertake a lot of that work at night, particularly whilst there are rail closures, or at the very least set up a sort of a temporary structure around the bridge so that work can be undertaken whilst traffic still runs underneath. Of course, there will inevitably be some road closures, but until we know that detail as to the scope and the level of works that we're going to need to that, which will be part of our next design stages, I'm not in a position to say it's going to be X number of weekends of road closures or what have you. There inevitably will be some road closures, but there would have to be one when the railway gets close to rail traffic, and secondly at a time that is compassionate to the road usage, particularly during the day, Monday to Friday in particular.
And so I don't know if you covered that, Adam, but there's no plans to replace either this bridge, the Marmer Bridge, or Coldham's Lane Underbridge.
From what we've seen at the moment, no. The structures used to certainly Barnwell Underbridge is a newer structure. It's in good nick. It doesn't require a lot. It might require some work on the railway side, so shoring up some of the abutments. Coldham's Lane Underbridge is in a slightly, you know, is in a bit more of a worse nick. Like I said, we don't think that it needs a wholesale replacement. But that's something that we're needing to survey in detail and then have a discussion with Network Rail as to how much life is left in the existing structure, how much life would be still in the structure if we were to strengthen it and to give it that TLC. And if it's in the single digits, then it's something that we would look to replace. And so in future consultation stages, that draft order boundary limit might be a little bit larger because we would need to, you know, replace the bridge. Typically, a bridge like that we'd close on a bank holiday weekend, you know, an Easter 3-day bank holiday weekend, for example. But at the moment, it's not in scope. We're not expected to close them, to replace them.
Thanks, Adam. So moving further west, there's the purple hatch, the purple fill, sorry, on these drawings shows a construction compound. We do have a potential opportunity for a station in that location, which perhaps we'll come back to later if we cover the base infrastructure first. As I mentioned, that's the Tins footbridge to be replaced by the council. And then the twin trekking heads all the way out here just before High Street, where the turnback will be located. I don't know if Adam or Jack wants to say anything on the actual nature of the turnback. I called it unremarkable, but there's still some significant infrastructure required, isn't there, to get that in?
Yeah, so operationally, it comes with a set of requirements. So as John was saying earlier on, a train driver will pull up with an empty train alongside the bidirectional existing single line. There would be some point work somewhere to be able for the trains to be able to cross from one line onto the other. And then the turnback would be, it requires a few things. It requires vehicular access for what we call start of service crew. So these are, you know, cleaners, litter pickers, that sort of thing that would come up at the end of the service, clear the train, get it ready for the next morning service for the train to then depart as the first train then head its way back towards Oxford. There might be some other sort of cleaning or very light maintenance activities, but it's predominantly a stabling location. So it's for staff on foot to walk alongside of the train, whether that's a driver or training cleaning crew. So that requires some low level low lighting. It require a walking route. It require a vehicular access. So we'd be looking to permit vehicles to come in off Railway Street. Then, as we've got the junction as Railway Street goes, takes a right turn, you might just be able to see where there's that dotted orange line. Broad at that location, there would be a gate that comes onto the rail side for vehicles to be able to access this siding. And then the siding will be approximately 200 meters in length. It's a straight bit of track with a buffer stop and some walking routes with some lighting. It is relatively unremarkable, but it has got overhead line electrification. We are at the moment assuming that the whole area will be electrified. It's not presently electrified, so there is that added piece of infrastructure that we'll be putting alongside the line of the route. Beyond that, there's not a massive amount to sort of tell on it, really. It's relatively low speed. I think in a turnback or in a siding, trains are limited to about 10 miles an hour, whilst the adjacent parallel line runs presently at 60. So yeah, operationally, the single line will still work as it is today, a reversible single line alongside the turnback, and yeah, unremarkable, but more rail infrastructure, and fundamentally more people accessing that location off Railway Street.
Can I ask two questions, please? One, you referred to electrification and the infrastructure that would be needed for that. Presumably that's quite a significant amount of infrastructure, and that would have to be put in place. So there would be works to put that in place.
Yes.
And secondly, those who live, or rather who use this area a lot, will know that the level crossings there, the gates are down for a long, long time and cause huge tailbacks. Is this going to affect the functioning of the level crossings, the 3 level crossings in the area?
Two good questions and very fair. So with the overhead line, yes, there's overhead line structures which are required. They tend to be on the outside of the railway. So these are metal posts with what we call registration arms. L-shaped tubular bits of metal that hold up the contact wire, which powers the trains. So our power is going to be coming from the Cambridge end, so there's no significant, from what we can see at the moment, any significant substation or anything of that nature that's additional. It's just the overhead line infrastructure that you typically see at Cambridge Station, for example, but alongside the line of the route. The level crossings themselves, because we've only got the same amount of traffic that runs from Cambridge to Ipswich. I think presently Greater Anglia run 1 train an hour in each direction. Network Rail and Greater Anglia have an aspiration to run 2 trains an hour in each direction. That's not anything that we're changing. They're looking at maximising the capacity of this particular line by increasing the frequency of service. The nature of the turnback and where we've got the points that direct trains from sort of the running lines, as you will, into the sidings. The additional 2 trains an hour that we'll be putting into this turnback siding will not impact the level crossing. It will still only be the through trains that go through and back towards Newmarket and back that will activate the level crossing. So East West Rail will not make any additional impact into the barrier downtime at the level crossings. But that's not to say that before we come, someone else might come in and add some additional services that might, and yeah, that'll be Network Rail's and Greater Anglia's current aspirations.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Adam. So I'll just keep taking us along. I think this is point just to the west of High Street, Cherry Hinton, is the point at which any real infrastructure ceases to happen. Like we said earlier, we put our red line, our order boundary along the rail boundary all the way up here and all the way to the feeder state. What is it, Adam? Sorry, the
Bourbon Telecoms.
the telecoms box here. But just to confirm, no proposed infrastructure, additional tracks or anything, all the way out to here.
No, indeed. We're aware that the Forball Greenway, I think it's called, which runs alongside the railway, has got some plans in place to widen that route and possibly put up some lighting. That does require a little bit of existing railway land, so it squeezes up the railway boundary east of Cherry Hinton level crossing. That doesn't impact us either. It's something that came our way. We didn't object to it. Actually, it's something that we're in favour of, really, because it just adds to the connectivity of Cambridge. So there shouldn't be any conflict there either.
Okay. Any more questions at this stage? I might go back to the concept of the new station here, because I think that's probably of interest.
Yeah.
So basically, when we started our study, as I described earlier, to try and take the pressure out of Cambridge Station itself, and the concepts of turnbacks, we explored a number of different locations, and some were on the West Anglia Main Line, and some were on the Newmarket line. One of the leading options was in this location here, just to the south of the Marshalls Airport site. We are very clear on what's been required of us by the Department for Transport, and that's not to put a station in this location, but as part of our wider remit, just to consider opportunities for the city of Cambridge. This sort of came onto the radar. So the consultation material is very clear that the station is not included at this stage, but it's recognised that it's an opportunity and something that may be brought into scope at a later date, and one we're keeping open at the moment. Just thought it's worth raising as an agenda item, just to see if there was any particular feedback you did have, because we are certainly in the process of trying to get as much information on the idea as possible. Go ahead, please, Christine.
Certainly is an interesting idea, I must say, to have a station there. Bit concerned about the traffic, obviously. Be even nicer if there was a car park there as well, obviously, but this is Cambridge. We don't usually do that. Generally accepted, I must say, just a subject of great annoyance. But hey, but yeah, I think that's quite an interesting idea, actually, because it would certainly make better use of that extra piece that you're putting in there for the turning, rather than just have a train go up and down it and not catch any passengers. It would be quite an interesting idea.
Yeah, I mean, when we started to assess, there's these 15 criteria which we assess options against, and the fact that the Marshall site will be developed for mixed use usage going forwards sort of came onto our radar, and that sort of sparked us discussions, really. But yeah, very keen for any feedback you do have to be submitted as part of the consultation.
Okay, I think it's a good idea. It'd be lovely to have a car park, but hey, I'll be quiet.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Oh, can I just be clear whereabouts you're proposing the station?
Sure. So this is the roundabout known as Sainsbury's roundabout.
Sorry, which roundabout? I'm sorry, your voice is quite muffled.
Sorry, I've got a terrible cold. I apologise.
Yeah.
This is the Sainsbury's roundabout, just on the Barnwell Road heads north, Coldham's Lane heads west. So if you went under the existing rail bridge just under Coldham's Lane and look
Yeah.
to left, that's where the Marshalls airport site is.
Yes.
And then just to the south here is what's currently a bit of scrubland,
Yes.
and a potential station would be in this location.
I agree with Christine. It's a very interesting proposal. I guess my main concern would be, how would people get there? You'd have to make sure that there was really good cycling access, and there was really good public transport access. What you don't want is lots of cars converging. Well, you wouldn't be providing a car park anyway, probably, or not much of a car park. But it won't work unless right from the beginning, right from the early stages of the planning, there is sufficient ground and funds for really good cycling, walking, and public transport access.
And maybe a bus service from Teversham would be a fantastic.
Oh, wouldn't it be wonderful, Christine? Absolutely wonderful. First on the list.
Yes, please.
So just to come in on that, Claire, in terms of the active travel, we're aware of the upgrade to the Tins footpath being undertaken by Greater Cambridge Partnership. So we would aim to link in to that going east. And then additionally, Marshall's initial plans look to have a green finger active travel route going in the northbound direction. And again, we've taken on board the feedback about the bus service as well. So we are trying to connect that as much as possible, and there would be active cycling provision, etc., for the station itself.
I am just going to add to that, and excuse my talking a lot, but there's no bus service at the moment along Coldham's Lane. And that's something that to factor in when proposing the location of a new station.
That has come up in discussions that we've had with marshals who believe are in favour and looking at possible future bus connections and provisions and bus stops on Coldham's Lane. Quite how as well whether or not they connect it up with the park and ride, which is I believe is proposed up to the north of the airfield. There is dare I say there's beginning to be joined up thinking with future developments, what it is that we're proposing, and if there's that enough interest there from the local stakeholders and from the developers, we can build it and hopefully they will come. And certainly we have got in our concept or feasibility studies, we have been looking at possible drop-off points for buses in and around the station area, or how we would connect possible bus stops up at on Coldham's Lane. So yeah, there's nothing there today. There's certainly conversations as what potentially there could be, and us as rail infrastructure providers, we need to be sure that we make enough of a provision such that when that decision is made, we're ready to go, and we've not done anything which precludes the introduction of an additional public transport connection that's not rail.
I don't know if it's worth. We've got Ben here, who's our traffic and transport expert. I mean, it's not necessarily directly relevant to this potential station, but Ben, I think it's probably of interest, isn't it, to the councillors on this call, just to the work you're going to be doing upcoming. I don't know if you give a quick overview of that, just to.
Yeah, sure. So, for those who didn't catch me at the beginning, I'm Ben Nicholas, and I lead on the traffic and transport aspect of East West Rail. And my role is predominantly to undertake the appraisal of the impacts on the road network, both a strategic road network and a local network. And the way that East West Rail have gone about doing that is basically creating a series of transport models that start off by replicating what the road conditions are in the local area today. So we've got a 2023 model that represents the AM into peak and PM peak periods, and the reason why that's important is that we can then forecast at the busiest points on the network across the week. And it's a neutral week, so we exclude any sort of times of year where traffic drops, like school holidays. So we've got a good understanding of where the current pinch points and issues are on the road network at the moment. And then we forecast into the future. So at the moment, we've forecasted to 2034, which is a notional opening of East West Rail, and to 2049, which is in effect a design year. And that's when we'd think where East West Rail would be fully built out. That would be where it would reach its highest usage. And the reason why we go to 34 and 49 is because when people think about their day-to-day journeys now and how the road conditions are, they forget that in 15 years' time, because the area is along a corridor of excessive, I suppose, economic potential, that the roads are going to become busier and there is going to be congestion and there are going to be additional hotspots, and East West Rail need to capture those before we start even thinking about how we're going to mitigate what East West Rail does. So we've got a 2034 without East West Rail. The reason and the way that we've collected all that information, we've spoken to local authorities to understand what their local plans are and about what applications have got certain or near certain development opportunity coming forward. So we've loaded that all into the model. So we've got a good understanding of how the road network operates in 2034, and then in effect we then drop in what East West Rail demand is going to do in terms of infrastructure, and that at the moment sort of is starting to highlight hotspots on the network where in effect East West Rail is making road junctions go over and above the sort of 85% capacity. And the reason why 85% capacity is important, that's when junctions start to break down. Anything sort of below 85% is optimal. Anything above it, there's issues. So we're starting to get a long list of junctions where that's going to be an issue in 2034 and 49, and we're starting to speak now to the local highway authorities and the local authorities to say, look, these are the junctions, this is what our modelling is saying, are there any additional areas of concern? And what we then start to do is start to explore with them about potential mitigation measures, about what is acceptable to them. Is it sort of roundabouts, or is it signalised junctions, or is it widening? Because we're really aware that just because East West Rail I think is a good design engineering solution, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to fit in with the makeup of the local environment and it actually work for the users. And the reason why I'm saying all of this is, and you're probably thinking, why is Ben talking about roads? Is that I know this is an East West Rail and it's all about rail, but actually the rail will affect more people than will potentially use it. And I'm very much for transport for the user. So it isn't just about rail users, it's about everyone that's going to engage with the road network and the highways and the active travellers. It's important that we have, and it's part of my role, that we have this interface and a design solution that isn't just for rail, it's about for everyone, that we maintain connectivity between villages and towns and origins and destinations, and we limit what we call severance. We sort of break those communities, and that's the last thing that I would want. If anything, at the end of the day, the legacy from East West Rail would be great if we could have all of the economic growth, but it'd also be good that we maintained and improved people's experience of transport and the local environment. And so this is what, from my perspective, this is where the consultation is really useful, is that it's your local knowledge that we may overlook because all the modelling is sort of mathematically pure, that we're overlooking, and it's stuff that that doesn't work on a day-to-day, or you think there is a frustration. Now's the point for you to really push back to us and say, actually, can you consider this? And we'll go back and look, does our design reflect that? Does our modelling capture that? And if it doesn't, why not? And that's where we start for that. We start that interface. And pretty just sort of closing out on that is that the models are mathematically perfect. They're not going to capture the human responses to things, but it's a tool to help shape a demand. It's to shape a story, to help start engaging with yourself, to actually for you to understand the scale and scope of the problem. So those models are going to be run with the East West Rail scheme this month, and so they will be in effect the fundamental tools to be used to support the statutory consultation and the development of the transport assessment. The transport assessment is a key document within statutory consultation, and that will really start to pick out where the issues are going to be on the highway network, how we're going to mitigate against them, not just during operation, but during construction and logistics. We do have a 2032 model, which is our sort of pseudo peak construction, and that would just focus solely on construction and logistics and how we're going to mitigate against that. And those mitigation of construction and logistics, is pretty just worth mentioning, is that it isn't just going to be permanent solutions, it's also going to be temporary. So there, within our draft transport assessment and the transport update report, we have said that within there that we are going to be engaging with the Highways Authority about how we mitigate against that in the short and long term. But all of that is going to be wrapped up within the statutory consultation. There'll be a lot more detail then about what those areas of concern are, how East West Rail are going to mitigate that, what we've done in terms of engagement, and what that final design solutions are looking like. And we're not, and I suppose one last thing from me is that we're not doing that in isolation. We're not saying this is East West Rail's utopian view of the world and this is what we believe. We are actually in open conversations with the highways authorities and local authorities, and welcome your challenge and pushback on those design solutions. Because as I said, I really want the network to operate for every user and not just East West Rail users and for highway users. So that's what we're doing at the moment. I don't know if you guys got any questions on transport assessments or traffic and transport in general. Christine?
Yeah, I mean, looking at where it is, say, interesting idea, good idea actually, but that traffic around that area, once that, as you probably know, once that area stops or anything happens where you sneeze at that roundabout, the whole of Cambridge basically stops. And that I know is one of the big problems and big issues around there. And as previously highlighted, I think transport is such a big problem. If we had like a really half decent bus service, that would be adorable, and being able to come in from the villages, and I don't know, however, to connect and just go through there, drop off there would be a great idea. But yeah, and still allow the traffic to go through, because people will use cars to go to Sainsbury's shopping, and you've got the big C3 church there as well. So there's quite a bit on that junction, Mill Road and all the rest of it. So
Yeah.
it will be a challenge, but it would be great to have some really good bus services there. And if you can pull it off, well done.
I suppose just to sort of just capture what you said about issues that are currently being experienced on the highway network, and this is where I think it needs to be clear what East West Rail aren't going to be doing, is that if there's an ongoing problem there and the junction's sort of, I'm going to, for want of better words, broken, if East West Rail make the junction worse, we will roll back to make it as bad as what it is today. But that isn't to say that we're not going to be working with the local authority to come up with clever design solutions to alleviate the issues at those junctions. We're at such an early stage in terms of those developments. They're still all open for discussion. But it isn't East West Rail going to come in and remove all the issues on the highway network that in effect are historical, because I suppose there's bigger policy decisions and decisions that have been made previously that have allowed that. And then secondly, on bus routes, I agree. If you want people out of cars, you need to have a bus route to get people on that's safe, affordable for all users, that is reliable. However, even though that can feature within sort of the transport assessment and the transport aims of East West Rail, we still need to get buy-in from an operator, and it needs to be, I suppose, profitable for them or subsidised by the department. So again, that is the next stage is coming on, and that will obviously be discussed with the transport operator and the local authority and yourselves as and when those plans come to fruition, or a little bit clearer on the purpose and demand.
Okay, thank you.
Brilliant.
Claire, is that
yes, okay, so just following up what Christine was saying then, of course, this is not only is it a very busy area now, but potentially much busier in future, because you've got the current development on the airport site, on the east of the airport site, the Springstead Village development, and then from 2030 onwards, the development of the whole airport site. So that's going to hugely increase the population in this eastern side of Cambridge, and some of those, a proportion of those, will be wanting to get to Cambridge Station to use East West Rail from Cambridge Station, as well as other lines. So by implication, you're adding to the traffic in that area simply by putting East West Rail in Cambridge Station. So there will be a direct impact on the road, because if and when, or when and if there's a station to the east of Cambridge, until that point, people will be relying on Cambridge Main Station. So there's going to be massive impact here on the road infrastructure, and it's so important to work, as you said, with all the other authorities to make to make a difference to the usage of the road.
Yeah, I agree, and it's I suppose always use the analogy that people can only experience a great holiday, but they only remember the bad journey to the holiday. They'll come home, do you have a great holiday? Yeah, it was okay, but I had a really rubbish access to the airport. And this is what I'm going to try and get, is that East West Rail is only going to be a success if the end-to-end journey is okay for not only for the users but all of the users for the network. It isn't just going to be I suppose the user of the train is for everyone. So I agree, and it's something that I'm striving from a traffic and transport point of view, that it is an inclusive design and that we do look to mitigate where we can, and that's both a pragmatic and proportionate approach.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thanks a lot, Ben.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. Some really good, points coming up here, and hopefully finding it useful. John, I realise we kind of moved quite a way along the route now, so just wanted to pause for a minute, just again to give everyone a chance to think about anything else they want to raise, the experts as well, if they wanted to kind of bring anything to the room. Claire, brilliant, go for it.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously we're talking about the fact that some of this affects us who are, to the east of off the screen here, so to speak. I assume that there's been really detailed discussions with Cherry Hinton, because this is going to have a massive impact on the village of Cherry Hinton.
So the main discussion time will be the 21st of January. That's the day we allocated. So owing to the fact that we had not East West Rail had not sort of touched this area before, we targeted an event in Cherry Hinton with the express purpose of getting as many people as possible down there to discuss what we've talked about tonight.
Well, it's outside my area, so I tread very carefully here. But how will they know? How will the residents of Cherry Hinton know about the St Andrew's Church Day? And I presume it's from 10 in the morning till 8 at night or whatever.
That's it.
But how will they know about it?
We've done extensive promotions for the events. They've been in the papers, on the radio. There's been quite a lot of posters around the city and flyers, and we've also emailed the LRG members. There's a newsletter. So I think, judging on the turnout of the other events locally, people should be well aware of when the events are and what's happening, and had quite a lot of time to look at the information. So quietly confident that people are aware this is happening and when.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. I should really mention as well, I mean, this isn't the only time that we can talk to you about this. I mean, you have sort of my contact details, and my engagement team, as well as the area managers, are always sort of very happy to come out and talk if need be. But the first point of call would be the events that are remaining. So we do hope to see as many people there as we can to talk to you there. Okay. So is there anything else that any of the experts would like to sort of bring to the conversation before we move on? I think we've covered quite a lot. John and Adam, if you feel comfortable that you've covered everything that you felt would be appropriate for the meeting, that's brilliant. And of course, Claire and Christine, again, if there's anything else that you would like to ask, then now is your chance. And we put the 2 hours in. We can certainly have the 2 hours, but if you feel that we've covered everything, then we can certainly let you go tonight and see you at the events. So I just wanted to raise that now.
Don't think I have. I'm not sure if Claire has. I'll save up lots of thoughts for the event at St Andrew's Church, and badger you then with 1,000,001 questions.
Yeah.
No problem.
Okay. I don't think I have, and I'll either go to the event on the 18th in Cambridge, or to the event in St Andrews in Cherry Hinton.
No problem. There's one in Comberton, but I realise that's a little bit sort of out of your area, but that's a large event there coming on Friday as well. So again, that's another one. John?
I did have one question, just of general interest. If there's time, we are aware of the Project Newton, the science development happening on the north side of the Newmarket line, and I wondered if you'd been involved from a parish perspective in the proposals as they've been evolving.
I'm sorry, I didn't watch which development.
The Project Newton,
the Mission Street development.
The Mission Street development to the.
Not so much on the fringes of that, but not so much. But obviously, we know what that development is consisting of. Yeah, I mean, presumably you've been having discussions about that.
Yeah, I mean, just as one big project to another, a few touch points, yes. And I suppose the same for Marshall's development site. Have you been to did you go to their consultation and have been involved with that so far?
Yes, the Marshall's consultation, yeah. But the residents of Cherry Hinton obviously are the people most closely affected by the Mission Street development.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll just check with Ian. He doesn't have any more questions at the moment. So I think that concludes the sort of proposals update and the sort of interaction from the experts and anything else we wanted to cover. John?
Sorry, got more questions. I think it's for you, Sarah. At the Cherry Hinton event, are we doing the first hour for parish councils here?
We're doing the first hour at both events again, Clayton Hotel and Cherry Hinton for DLRG members. Yeah. Okay. So you have an hour there if you wish to come along before the public arrive, where it's generally a bit quieter, where again you can walk around the room and we can show you the maps and talk through the proposals for an hour before the public arrive. Claire?
I just have a question of detail. So at the turn back, as you called it, is that stabling, or is it for stabling, or is it for turnaround, continual turnaround?
Essentially both. So presently, operationally, it is a turn back, but we are looking at potentially having a train stable overnight, for example. So the last service that comes into Cambridge from the Oxford end would go to the turn back location and would stable there overnight. Of course, it would shut down until it then has its cleaning service done, and then it's ready for a start of service. So first train in the morning would then be out. So operationally, it's just a turn back during the hours of operation, but we are looking at realistically it being a potential stabling point, particularly overnight.
Okay, so there'll be some land take for that then.
No, the rail corridor in that location is ample for what we require.
Okay.
So there's no additional land take. Like I said earlier, the only impact I think that we're going to have outside of the existing railway boundary, which is still TBC and something that we need to review and possibly have a look at our draft order boundary limit is the junction to where the gate would be onto Railway Street. There might be some minor highways alterations in that location, but it's too early to tell at the moment. Just as we're thrashing out that railway operation details, precisely what you're asking: is it a turn back? Is it a turn back and stabling? It's certainly the former. It could be both. I would expect it actually to be both, but no additional land required.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, just before we close again, Claire, Ian and Christine, I just want to check that you're comfortable with where all the documents are for the consultation, that you viewed them online. There's nothing that you need to find that we can direct you to before we leave. All good?
I'm quite good. Yeah, I haven't got a problem. I know where they are. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, brilliant. Well, thank you very much for joining tonight. Ian as well, you have no more questions. Thank you again, all three of you. Thank you to all the experts as well for taking the time tonight, and we hope to see you at one of the remaining events soon. And please, as highlighted earlier, please give us your feedback. Good, bad, ugly. We want to have it. So please do that. And we look forward to seeing you soon. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you all. Good
Thank you
evening.
very much.
Very much.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Good
Thank you
night.
all.